Welcome to Retire with Purpose, a show specifically designed to help you maximize your financial confidence in retirement. Casey Weade is the CEO and Chief Visionary of Howard Bailey Financial, a certified financial planner and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. He's your host on Retire with Purpose.
Hey, I'm Casey Weade, and we believe in retirement strategies that are driven by meaning and purpose. Join us this week and every week as we discuss planning for your best retirement, pinpointing your purpose, building a rock-solid financial plan, and unpacking trending topics that could impact your financial future. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, as he does every week, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me.
Hey.
And this is our opportunity to discuss retirement with you. So whether you're at retirement, in retirement, near retirement, or you're just seeking that coveted job optional status, you have found yourself a home. We're going to have a wide-ranging discussion today, as we always do. We're going to be covering topics such as cash. Maybe cash is king. Maybe you should actually be sleeping with your cash. We'll get to that here in just a moment. In addition, we're going to talk about taxes. We're going to talk about income and risk, the top three main concerns of you right now: taxes, income, risk. We're going to be hitting on those later in the show. We're also going to be talking about Social Security survivors benefits and the best way to choose your retirement date. And not to mention, we have a very special guest. We have Joe Casey from Retirement Wisdom, top 10 leadership and development consulting companies for 2019, and one of the top leadership and retirement coaches. So stick around for that. We have a great offer for you later in the show. Joe is going to be giving away his ebook, 7 Traps in Planning for Life and Retirement. But first off, we're going to be covering an article that was part of our Weekend Reading for Retirees email series. What is that? Well, you'd know if you signed up. Going over to retirewithpurpose.com. First name and email will get you signed up to receive one email from us every single Friday with 4 articles on trending topics in the retirement planning space, all designed to keep you on top of the latest trends so that you can make the best decisions about your retirement and your finances going forward. Again, sign up at retirewithpurpose.com. We like to spotlight one of those articles with you every single week. And this week, we're going to be spotlighting an article from the Humble Dollar blog titled Sleeping with Cash. And you can get a link to this article by checking out the podcast, or Marshall and myself did a full-length discussion on this very article, Sleeping with Cash. You can catch that at retirewithpurpose.com in the show notes or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The Humble Dollar. I love the title of the blog. But Casey talks about cash, one of those topics that we often get asked about when families come into the office. How much cash should I keep? How much cash should I have on hand? How much safe liquid money should I have? And as he states in this article, he's been taught that he should have a portfolio that helps him sleep well at night.
Yeah, and I think what is said there, he says, the best investment portfolio, it isn't the one that's theoretically or empirically superior. Rather, it's the one that lets you sleep at night. And I love that. That is what Howard Bailey was designed around, to help you design the investment portfolio, the strategy that's going to best help you sleep at night. My dad used to send out these little postcards that had a swan on the front of them. He would send those out to the families that he worked with after they had placed their plan, and it said, "Sleep well at night."
Oh,
right?
Swan.
Sleep well at night. Yeah. That was the goal when he designed his financial plan for himself, and then imparted that wisdom onto myself and the families that we work with, that it's not about the empirically superior portfolio. I think that's really important for us to understand, because right now, I just got done listening to a podcast by Jerry Gundelach, a billionaire investor, very famous for his knowledge about the economy, the markets, and so much more. He shared his ideal allocation. He says the ideal allocation to have right now is 5% Bitcoin, 10% cash, 25% real estate, 20% commodities, 25% equities, 15% government bonds. I would have a heart attack if that was my portfolio. I could not do that. Can you imagine someone, just think of yourself, maybe you have $500,000 in net worth, because he's talking about net worth here, not just investable assets. If you had $500,000 in net worth, dropping $25,000 of that into a speculative asset such as Bitcoin, where it could conceivably go to zero. I don't know too many individuals with $500,000 in net worth and it can afford to lose 25 grand at a drop of the hat. Yeah, that is something that I couldn't stomach.
And even if it wouldn't go necessarily to zero, it could drop by 30% in, say, a week. Oh, you mean like we just saw last week?
Like just happened.
So, you know, there's going to be a lot of volatility there. So that may not be something
the ideal portfolio for you.
For Andrew. And that's what he gets into. He says right here, what I've found.
Yeah, and what I've found is that it's different for everyone. My aunt and uncle, I was just working with them on their own financial plan, and for them, they are terrified of the stock market. They wouldn't put a dime in the market or put it at risk. I shared with them the ideal structure of their portfolio, and they said, that's okay, but we won't be able to sleep at night if we have anything in the markets. So we had to structure a plan that wasn't empirically superior, right?
Sure.
But it was superior for them. Yes, they might not earn as high of a rate of return as they might if we allocated more of those dollars to the market or at risk, but at least they can sleep well at night. And they had seen a couple financial advisors before they came to see me, and they said, no one wants to allow us to use other tools that are outside the market. Everybody says we have to be in the market or they won't work with us, but I know you have all the tools, so put together a plan that can help us sleep well at night. That's the important part of having an advisor that has all the tools at their disposal, because if they don't, you may not have the tools that help you sleep well at night.
Well, and we meet lots of families too, Casey, to be honest, where one spouse may love the market, one may not. And so if you have a situation like that, well, that one spouse may not be sleeping as well at night if the other spouse is taking a tremendous amount of risk, or as this article alludes to, maybe having more cash than necessary. How many times have you had that conversation where the husband says, why do we need 3 months or 6 months or 3 years worth of cash reserves? It's not making anything with these interest rates.
Yeah, and I've had that happen over and over again. And it's usually, I must say, it seems like it's always a more conservative spouse. One of the two of them wants to be more conservative. One wants to be more aggressive. The more conservative one likes that cash in the bank. They like the feeling that they can go there. They can get that cash anytime. It's always available to them. And as the author of this Humble Dollar article states, he says he likes an oversized cash reserve. He likes to keep enough cash to finance their normal expenditures for at least 6 years.
Woo!
In addition to that, he has an additional allocation to bond funds, intermediate term municipal bonds in his taxable account, total bond market index funds in his retirement account, right? He has 6 years worth of cash. And I think that is perfectly fine. Now, not everyone can afford to have 6 years worth of cash. I think that needs pointed out here as well. There's families that I've worked with that need a level of income that couldn't be supported if they had outsized cash reserves, because they need the overall portfolio to make X percent on an annualized basis. But we say this all the time. This is why part of our planning process is cash. The first step in our planning process is determining liquidity and how much you would like to have liquid, safe, and easily accessible at a moment's notice. And that's going to be different for everyone. But just as my dad did and myself, we always kept outsized cash reserves because that's what helps us sleep well at night. I like to know I've got some dry powder on the sidelines to help me take advantage of opportunities and defend against any risks that may come along.
Well, and I like what he said there. He says that not only cash for the most likely contingencies, but also unexpected ones, and then some. So it's different for each and every individual. He talked about author William Bernstein was quoted in The Humble Dollar back in 2017 saying, "When you've won the game, stop playing with the money that you really need." That also goes back to a founding principle of ours.
Yeah, and he also says he's less interested in getting richer and more interested in guaranteeing that the modest lifestyle that has served his wife and himself can be maintained for as long as they remain on this planet, regardless of any curveballs that come their way.
Oh, that sounds a lot like Mitch Anthony, right? It's no longer about the return on investment. It's the return on life.
Yeah, it's about return on life. Now, there is a key here. If you're going to keep excess cash reserves, you're going to have a year, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years worth of cash reserves. In my opinion, that should not be sitting aside in bond funds. That should not be sitting aside in accounts yielding 0.5% on an annualized basis. There are ways for you to maintain that liquidity, those cash reserves, that safety, and earn significantly higher rates of return, even have the opportunity to earn 3-5% per year and do so on a tax advantaged basis. But you won't get that if you're a do-it-yourselfer or you're working with a fee-only advisor that doesn't have all the tools at their disposal. You need to be working with an independent advisory team that understands the value of cash, that understands the importance of cash, and most importantly, the value of peace of mind and you knowing that you're going to be prepared for whatever comes your way throughout retirement, and co-architects a plan around that you view as a partner, that you view as someone that's walking this path with you, because you deserve a secure and independent retirement. And we're here to offer a complimentary financial review for you right now. For the next 10 radio callers, you'll meet with an independent financial advisor on our team, either in person, through a video meeting from the comfort of your home, and we'll help you determine how prepared you are to handle retirement pitfalls like inflation, healthcare emergencies, stock market crashes, and the undoubtedly rising taxes that are headed our way. In short, we'll take the guesswork out of financial planning for you. And this can take just 30 minutes. So for the next 10 callers that call or text CONSULT, that's CONSULT, to 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559, we're offering a comprehensive financial review, no obligation, 866-482-9559. You can text CONSULT to that number or just give us a call. Stick around, because after this, we're going to be taking questions from you. We've got questions from Roger and Eileen and Bruce about how to eliminate more risk from their portfolio, how to file for Social Security survivors benefits, and the best way to choose your retirement date. So stick around.
You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. It's your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me.
Hey.
This is our opportunity to answer questions from you. So if you have questions, we have answers. Just email us at info@howardbailey.com. Maybe you have questions about required minimum distributions, Roth conversions, the latest tax legislation that's coming down the pike. Well, then email us at info@howardbailey.com or just visit retirewithpurpose.com. Drop your question in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That'll come directly to us. We will get you an answer. And if you'd like to have your question featured on the show, we will bring it right over here to the radio show, TV show, maybe even make it to the podcast. Did that this week with Roger. And Roger says, I'm looking to eliminate more risk from my portfolio, but I've been wondering, should I handle my risk tolerance allocations the same way in each of my various accounts?
Raj. How about Raj coming through
I'm
with
really
a good...
excited about Roger's question. That was on point.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It
So
was well thought through. I mean, how many retirees, investors are really thinking this much about risk tolerance and allocation?
Well, I think more are probably thinking about the concept of it, but not so much to take it down to this level. Like, hey, should I do this with my 401k and my IRA? What about my wife's 403b? I see what he's getting at, though. If they're all 60-40 or 70-30, if you're going to adjust one, should you do it to all of them? And my response to Raj is like, hey, it doesn't have to be done a specific way, but what you want to know is what the process is for getting to the end goal. We use a program called Riskalyze that helps us analyze different portfolios, helps give us a risk number so we're all on the same page. Hey, your Roth's an 85 or your brokerage account is at 37. And so what I try to do is we try to purpose each and every account to say, hey, this is going to be my long-term growth money, or this is my short-term income assets. So you're trying to repurpose various accounts to do different things, but there's no reason why you couldn't adjust allocations in all the accounts, but it somewhat depends on where you're at and what stage of life you're in.
Yeah, I would rather see Roger back into his risk tolerance allocation. And what I mean by that is starting with the purpose. What is the purpose for these assets? And I think what you're going to find, and what we find more often than not, we just talked about this in our advisory meeting this past Monday, as we talked through how we often find that individuals will have a certain risk tolerance that reflects how much risk they should be taking, how much is in equities or fixed income for that matter. And then we put together the plan. We'll find that the asset allocation that they need according to their purpose and their plan fits right into their risk tolerance or the allocation that they should actually have in the end. But I want you to start with the purpose. And that's what I do with my own accounts. I have Roth IRAs, and those Roth IRAs or 401k Roth dollars, those assets, I probably won't touch for decades into the future.
Long time.
And if I'm not going to touch those for decades, those are 100% stocks.
Maybe.
Those are 100% equity assets. And then we have the other dollars. So we have dollars that I have set aside for emergencies. Those emergency assets are set in fixed accounts where there's no risk. I know I can have them at any time. I have a deferred compensation plan that's paying out once a year for the next 10 years. That deferred compensation I have allocated to fixed income assets, bond funds, right? Those are allocated more conservatively. So then once you've allocated all those things based on purpose, then I think you import that allocation into a tool like Marshall mentioned, Riskalyze, and see what the overall risk level is of all of those assets combined and make sure that it lines up with your risk tolerance. And then you can make some tweaks from there.
Yeah, I think that was a great question, Raj. Thank you. If you want more clarification, you know what, Casey, I thought about something else too. Differences in ages between spouses will sometimes dictate, well, okay, if the younger spouse is 10 years younger, well, she's got a much longer time horizon, so you may want to be more aggressive.
Certain
with
asset classes.
Yeah, those asset classes. So great question, Raj. We could probably cover that for the whole segment.
If you'd like to get your question answered, you can email us at info@howardbailey.com, or very simply, go to retirewithpurpose.com. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, it says, Ask Casey a Question. Type your question right in there. That question comes to us. We will get you an answer. No cost, no obligation. If you got something on your mind, something about IRAs, something about tax laws, something about investment strategies, real estate strategies, whatever it is, Medicare for that matter, go on over to retirewithpurpose.com, send over your question. We will get it answered. And if you'd like to be featured on the show, we will bring your question right here on the show.
Next up, we've got Eileen, Casey, and she says, I'm 50 years old, currently widowed. When is the best time for me to claim Social Security survivors benefits?
Well, Eileen, you cannot claim until you're 60. And typically, for those of you that don't know, that is 62 is your early retirement age. That's when you can file for early Social Security benefits. However, for widows can file at 60. And I would encourage you to file at 60. And now, what I think is unique about and a unique opportunity for widows is that they can still follow file and suspend rules, which you haven't heard talked about a lot over the last couple of years, because this was ruled out for your average couple, right? So for a couple that are stepping into Social Security, what we used to do is we would have one of the couples go ahead and file for benefits. If they filed for benefits, then their other spouse could file for spousal benefits. They would take the spousal benefits. The spouse that filed for the initial benefits would suspend their benefits. So that would allow one of the two spouses to start collecting their spousal benefits before they flipped over and started their own benefit. So they would suspend their own benefit to allow it to grow into the future and then flip back. So how that would work in a widow's situation, Eileen, you turn on your spousal benefits at age 60, and from 60 to 70, you delay your own benefits, and at age 70, you can flip from your spousal benefits, your widow's benefits, your survivor's benefits over to your own benefit when it might be larger than that survivor's benefit. So while some say Social Security filing has become significantly simpler, this is true, but that's not true for everyone. We have to be careful with those blanket statements. This is a big decision for you when you're filing for Social Security. You're talking about an income that you're going to have for the rest of your life. If you make a decision today, it could cost you tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So get a Social Security analysis. Give us a call, and you don't even have to come into the office. You can email us over your numbers. We will run a Social Security analysis for you to show you the optimal time to file for your benefits so that you get the maximum benefit out of Social Security. All you have to do is give us a call, 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. We'll run a Social Security analysis for you at absolutely no cost, no obligation. Our next question comes from Bruce, and Bruce says, what's the best way to choose a retirement date? Should you base it around reaching a certain age, wait until the end of the year? What should I be taking into consideration?
Bruce, hey, great question. Maybe you can check out our podcast last week from Rules of Thumb regarding retirement planning. But, this is a very difficult question to answer because it depends on what type of retirement you're looking to try and create. Depends on the amount of assets that you've saved. It depends on whether you're going to remain job optional and maybe pursue other interests that you have. I do not think that you should base it around a certain age. Oftentimes we hear people say, well, I'm 59 and a half, or I'm 62, I can draw Social Security, or I'm 65, I can get on Medicare. And those are people that I would encourage to dig in a little bit deeper into their own situation and really determine what Social Security is all about. We're seeing this FIRE movement where people are retiring earlier and becoming job optional, not necessarily to stay at home and sit on the porch and drink sweet tea, but to pursue other passions in life. And so, Casey, this is a really difficult question that you could look at from a number of different ways. How would you address Bruce?
Well, I went straight to our last podcast discussion. Yeah, that was exactly what popped into my mind, is thinking through how to get to California. So, Bruce, I'm going to assume you're in the Midwest. How would you get to California? Well, I'd tell you to head west, right? You start heading west. Eventually, you'll get to the West Coast. Are you going to hit California? May not get to California. You might get there, though. What you would need to do is first know that you need to head west. And maybe you start heading west, but eventually you're going to need to plug something into your GPS, and it's going to get more and more specific as you get closer to that very specific destination. You might need to take a slight left, a slight right. You need to pay closer attention as you get closer to that destination, or you'll never end up where you want to be. Rules of thumb and just simple directions work really well when you're on your way to retirement. So if you're 25 years old, what should you do? Save 10% of every paycheck. That's a great starting place. Now, are you ultimately going to have enough for retirement? Well, that's something that we're going to have to analyze as you get closer to actually being able to save that 10%. And as we get closer and closer to the destination, like you are here, Bruce, what we need to do now is we need to sit down and gather your information and put together a rock-solid financial plan that walks you through all of the different risks that you're going to face throughout retirement. Then we can stress test it, right? So we can say, okay, what happens if Bruce retires at 60? What happens if Bruce retires at 70 or 61? We'll sit down with you and play with those numbers to show you how much income you can generate, how much that you would have left over in assets when you passed away. This is going to be a game of balance where we need to sit down, talk through the pros and cons, and ultimately put together a very specific plan to make sure you're on the path to having the secure and independent retirement that you seek. So let's pull out the GPS and let's get very specific with you right now through a complimentary financial review for the next 10 callers, where you'll meet with an independent financial advisor on our team, either in person, through a video meeting from the comfort of your home. We'll help you determine how prepared you are to handle retirement pitfalls like inflation, healthcare emergencies, stock market crashes, and rising taxes headed down the pike. In short, we'll take the guesswork out of financial planning for you, and it can take just 30 minutes. So for the next 10 callers that call or text the word consult to 866-482-9559, right now we're offering a comprehensive financial review with no obligation. Call or text consult to 866-482-9559. You'll walk out with a written plan that shows you where you're at today and where you're headed, but most importantly, what changes need to be made to take your financial life and your experience to the next level. Give us a call right now at 866-482-9559. After this short break, we're going to be inviting Joe Casey from Retirement Wisdom to the show. He is a retirement coach and leadership development coach, and he has a great ebook that we're going to give to you for absolutely free that is titled 7 Traps in Planning for Life and Retirement and How You Can Avoid Them. So stick around and get your free ebook from Joe Casey.
First-time callers are eligible to receive 1 in-stock book per request. Limit 1 book per week per household, up to 3 books per calendar year. See full terms at howardbailey.com/terms. You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me. And another very special guest. Today, we are featuring Joe Casey from episode 231. That's 231 of the Retire with Purpose podcast. You can check it out on your podcast app or retirewithpurpose.com. Joe is an executive and retirement coach. He brings an extensive experience in navigating transitions from his coaching work with his clients and also from his own life, his own career. It's awesome to be able to interview individuals that actually have stepped themselves into a second act in retirement and are also coaching others through this as well. He did retire at age 52 after 26 years in human resources, and he has a practice known as Retirement Wisdom, named one of the top 10 leadership development consulting companies in 2019. He helps individuals design their lives through their corporate careers and then pursue second acts. That's what's amazing about Joe, is he's helping coach leaders at Fortune 500 companies, and then he was helping coach those leaders into their second act, into their retirement, and exactly how to do that and to avoid traps along the way. And he also developed an ebook titled 7 Traps in Planning for Life and Retirement and How You Can Avoid Them, which we're going to be giving away to you for free later in the show. Thanks to Joe for offering that to our listeners. So stay tuned to get your own copy. But first, we're going to share a few of the highlights from the interview. First off was a statistic that I was just blown away by, slightly sad for where we're currently at in society, ready to blow up my own TV and get rid of Netflix forever. Joe shared with us that the average retiree spends 32 hours a week watching TV, and he elaborates on that here.
The Pew Research Center had a study looking back over the last decade, and not just TV, but screen time. And it's not surprisingly increasing pre-COVID. You can imagine with all the Netflix we all did during COVID, what the stats are now. But it's at the expense of other pursuits that many people will consider to be more meaningful. Reading, social activities, exercise, those are going down, screen time's going up. And I think that's because sometimes people have a tendency to drift, because the great thing about retirement is not having a structure or a schedule. You've got to create your own. And a lot of times people want a break between. You've earned it, you've earned a break. But if it goes too long, vacation is not that exciting or interesting or challenging. And they need to look for ways to find the right amount of challenge in their new life.
Boy, Marshall, how much Netflix do you watch every week?
Jeez, maybe 3 hours if I'm lucky.
Well, it was kind of sad when I went back and added up the amount of time that we spend watching TV. I mean, we're an outdoors family.
You've got little kids, though.
And they love it, and I love watching it with them, especially that's my best way to connect with Carver, because it's about his favorite thing to do. But if I do think about it, I bet it's close to 15 hours a week that we spend watching TV. At least we're doing it as a family. Yeah. And we're not doing it alone, but still, it's something that really I was enlightened in what I need to work on and in our family and my personal life. Yeah. Joe also shares with us here in this next clip why it's important to have your non-financial plan alongside your financial plan, how the financial and the non-financial strategies go hand in hand, and some of the non-financial issues you may face as you step into retirement.
That's why I think they really go hand in hand, because you definitely have to start with the numbers, but then you get to the emotional part of it. And retirement is one of the 10 most stressful life experiences. It's number 10, so I don't want to exaggerate, but it's in the top. And that's because it really hits at a lot of things that are emotional, meaning often for most people, it's the identity. Who am I? Often, especially with men, gets tied to our jobs, what we do. And then all of a sudden that's gone. Who are you now? Who are you going to be? And that's something we work on with people. The other thing about it is that it really disrupts your routine, especially with a long career. You've had work providing structure, routines, the rhythm of your days, rhythm of your weeks, sometimes months, years. And that's suddenly not there anymore. Good part is you've got the freedom, you do what you want. Bad thing is you've got to provide that structure. It also hits status really directly, because not only how we think of ourselves in terms of what we do, how others view us can often be tied to what we do as well. And all of a sudden that's shifted. And so a very innocuous question like, so what do you do at a barbecue, becomes an awkward moment that really people feel. They feel the awkwardness in that. And it takes a while to really craft that new identity. You don't want to rush, as I mentioned before. You don't want to jump into things too soon. You want to experiment, you want to test. But you want to have an answer to that that's forward-looking. And I think the ones I see that thrive in retirement have done that work, they've built a new future, and they see themselves that way. The ones who struggle are looking back in the past. I used to be X, I used to be Y, and it's a different experience.
We are featuring Joe Casey from episode 231. That's 231 of the Retire with Purpose podcast. You can check it out on your podcast app or retirewithpurpose.com. Joe is an executive and retirement coach. He brings an extensive experience in navigating transitions from his coaching work with his clients and also from his own life, his own career. One of the other things that Joe and I discussed is defining who you are today outside of work. Someone asks you, what do you do? Where do you leap to? Do you talk about finance? Do you talk about engineering? Or do you talk about your family? Do you talk about the golf? Do you talk about the travel? Do you talk about your volunteer time? Yeah, that is something that I learned from a dad's group that I am regularly a part of. One of the first things that I noticed is when you ask somebody in that group, what do? They say, oh, I've got a wonderful wife. We've been married for 35 years, got two really kick butt boys that love to golf, and I also spend a lot of my free time on the golf course and volunteering, and then I also own a financial business, right? I mean, and
it's like fourth on the list.
And it's like, okay, well, that really shows what your priorities are in life, right? That really illustrates what those priorities are. And if those individuals lost their business or stepped into retirement at this point in their life, they already have that other identity. They don't have to recreate or create an all new identity, because they don't just identify with what they do for a living. And I think that's important for all of us to think through and start creating for ourselves day in and day out. Don't just wait until you get to retirement. It can be really hard to unwind that identity that's so closely tied to your work. Another thing that Joe shared with us is how intertwined health and purpose are. And health-based discussions, fitness-based discussions on the Retire with Purpose podcast have actually become some of our most popular podcast discussions. And I think it's because we're all just recognizing how intertwined our health is with all aspects of life.
You write a lot about purpose, and one of the things that I find that people don't know about purpose in retirement is the connection with health. There were 2 University of Michigan studies, one in 2019, one just in April 2021. The first one found that people who did not have a strong life purpose, this is like 7,000 people in the study, died, were twice as likely to die. The second one, more optimistically, is about exercise, a new one, 2021 April. And it really looked at same about 5,000 people. And those who, it's kind of a bilateral relationship, those who have a high degree of exercise have a high sense of purpose. Chicken and egg, you don't know which one's driving the other, but they're associated, not necessarily causal, but it's theorized it also helps that structure. If you're pursuing exercise on a regular basis, you tend to have to structure your day to include that in there. So that's another way to think of purpose. I also find that the clients I work with, purpose sounds overwhelming. I just retired, now I got to find a new purpose. How do I do that? I find that my clients end up with a multi-purpose retirement. They have some experiments, and over time, one starts to emerge.
Ooh, I like that. Multi-purpose.
Yeah. Joe, as a retirement coach and leadership coach, one of the top coaches in the country, he has shared with us a lot of different areas of retirement planning, and most importantly, a lot of traps to avoid as you step into retirement. All the experience he has stepped into some of his own traps and seen many others do the same. And in his ebook, 7 Traps in Planning for Life and Retirement, he covers each one of them sequentially. We're going to offer that for free in just a moment. But first, I want to share with you his number 6 trap. Number 6 was not aligning with your spouse or partner. And he shares with us here what you can do to double check that you are aligned and what to do if there's some misalignment.
So the basic one is really just start to talk about the topic, meaning, what are your hopes? What are your concerns? Those two buckets could be really useful, because that can start to educate each other about what you have in mind, because you may be at a different place. One spouse might be saying, look, I want to dial back a little bit or shift gears. Another might be saying, I'm ready to now step out and really achieve and pursue things. And knowing that's important. Start talking about where you think you want to live. Some of those tangible things. The retirement options assessment, retirement success profile that Joanne Waldman mentioned on your podcast is a good one to take separately. I always recommend people take it by yourself and then compare notes, because that can tell you how prepared you are against different dimensions of retirement, particularly non-financially. But I think the conversation is important because it's something people tend to avoid. And if you can just start the discussion, especially spinning it forward, in 5 years, in 3 years, 10 years, where do we think we want to be? What do you think we might be doing? What's a perfect day? What would a perfect day be like? What would you have done? What would a perfect week have been like? What would we have done? And what would we have done together, and what would we have done separately? Because sometimes people think we have to do everything together. And as someone who's been privileged to be married for 40 years in a row, you need both. You need things you do together, but you need things separate interests as well. And so factoring that in can be really helpful.
Today we have a special offer for you. If you enjoyed the discussion we had with one of the top retirement coaches and leadership coaches in the country, we partnered up with Joe Casey to offer free copies of his ebook, which I personally truly enjoyed, titled 7 Traps in Planning for Life and Retirement and How You Can Avoid Them, to you right here. This simplified guide highlights top financial pitfalls of retirement, how they could impact you, and practical solutions to consider as you create a purposeful, confident second act. To claim your free ebook, 7 Traps in Planning for Life and Retirement, call or text the keyword LIFE, that's LIFE, L-I-F-E, to 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. Again, to claim your free ebook, call the number or text LIFE to 866-482-9559. Stick around, because next up we're going to be covering the top 3 main fears of retirees at this very moment.
First-time callers are eligible to receive 1 in-stock book per request. Limit 1 book per week per household, up to 3 books per calendar year. See full terms at howardbailey.com/terms. You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. It's your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me. And now we are going to be transitioning to a discussion around the main risks that we see retirees discussing today. Retirees and individuals looking to retire in the future, those coming in, visiting with us in the office, giving us a call, talking through their concerns. These are the 3 things that are coming up time and time again. I think we're finding that the concerns are getting much more concentrated today. The concerns of today's retirees, future retirees, they're very concentrated in 3 main areas. And we've honed in on these areas. One is taxes, the risk of taxes going up in the future, not just the risk, but the certainty of taxes going up in the future today. In addition to running out of money in retirement, how do we know that we're never going to run out of income in retirement and we'll always be able to maintain our lifestyle? And then thirdly, that is market risk. We're in a situation today where individuals are asking, is the market going to tank tomorrow? It can't continue on this tear forever. When is there going to be a real day of reckoning? Not a COVID dip, but when are we going to have a real day of reckoning in the future? Because the market's been on an absolute tear, and at this point in our life, we can't afford to take major losses in our investments.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody that walks through the door, Casey, has one of these topics in mind, and maybe they've got all 3. It's concerns, it's worries, and that's our job, is to help educate and empower around these 3 areas.
And first thing there is taxes. And I think first we often hear taxes, when we share articles in our weekend reading for retirees email series that you can sign up for at retirewithpurpose.com. In that email series, Marshall and I, we have to go out there and we research articles on various topics. And I find taxes to be a very polarizing subject right now. There's a bit of a dichotomy in people's feelings about taxes. Some will say that this is an opportunity, taxes going up in the future. This is an opportunity to take advantage of the situation that we're in today, super low tax rates. And then other articles are written in such a way that this is a serious threat, that you're going to be in a lot of trouble down the road. Now, I think they're both right. I think that, yes, that taxes going up in the future, it used to be something that we wondered if it would happen. Now there's a certainty that taxes are going up in the future, and that is an obvious threat to anyone that's going to have an income. And then it's also an opportunity, because we're still finding ourselves in one of the lowest tax rate environments in history, and you need to take advantage of that today so you can minimize the threat down the road. The thing is, most retirees, if you're showing how, you could save tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes if you act today, because there's no doubt taxes are going up. And the thing about this particular administration, they don't even apologize of it, right?
Right.
They're proud of taxes going up.
Well, and I would say, it's not even a Democratic or Republican it's a math problem, right? This is a math problem.
Yeah, and if history tends to repeat itself, which it does, we need to take a look at the history of tax rates and recognize that taxes have been significantly higher in the past than they are today. I mean, go back to 1945, 1946, marginal tax rates were as high as 96%. 96%. You may not remember that, but they were as high as 96%. We're complaining about a 37% tax rate going to 39.6%. Well, it could go significantly higher than that. Back then, an individual that made $300,000, they would give 96 cents of every dollar they made over $300,000 back to the IRS.
Well, don't you remember that famous Ronald Reagan story?
Yeah.
He would only shoot a couple of movies a year, and then he would take the rest of the year off because every dollar he would make, he would give away 90-some cents of it. So what did he do when he got into office?
Yeah, he
lowered that highest marginal tax rate. Hey!
Yeah. And we have an opportunity. Corporations have an opportunity today. Individuals have an opportunity today. Again, this is not something we are trying to politicize. We just want you to make sure you take advantage of the opportunity you have of a lifetime to take advantage of the lowest tax rates that you may ever experience the rest of your life. Get the taxes out of the way and set yourself up for a tax-free future that's ultimately going to help you have a more certain retirement because you're not worried about the cut that Uncle Sam's going to take out of your income. And income is number 2 on the most common topics or concerns that we're seeing retirees discuss today is running out of money. And that's not anything that's new. The number one retirement concern for generations have been running out of money in retirement. And a big part of that is that pensions are just a thing of the past.
Yeah, pensions are a thing of the past. Social Security's got its insecurities. So a lot of individuals today are thinking, hey, where's my future income going to be? And how do I make sure it can last me a lifetime?
Yeah, this is now up to you. There's not a corporation or a government that's out there to save you. It's up to retirees to secure the income that's going to last the rest of their life. And I think this is the number one failure of the financial industry today is that the majority of financial advisors have been only focused on one thing for decades, and that is growth. We need to get a higher rate of return. We need to grow those assets. But growth planning is completely different than income planning, and you're failing your client if all you're talking about is growth and how we can continue to grow that nest egg when all they really want to know is, you want to know, am I going to be okay? Am I going to have enough income to last for the rest of my life? And many individuals will never even step into retirement if they don't have that certainty around their income. We were at a client event here a couple weeks ago. I sat down with one of our longtime clients, and he said, Casey, I just want to thank you for everything that your team's done for us over the years. They started working with us, I want to say in 2017, roughly. He said, at that time, I was terrified of the market. I wanted to retire, but I was afraid I'd lose it all. And you put together a strategy that assured me that we'll never run out of income. And I never looked back. I never looked at the stock market ever again. So when you come in to see us, we want you to do one thing. You come in to visit with our team. You want to build a real income strategy. Please bring a copy of the income plan that you have today. And what we're going to do is we'll stress test it to make sure everything in there is accounted for, everything's pulling in the same direction so that you're getting maximum streams of income for the rest of your life. So come in, bring the copy of your income plan, get a second opinion. I think we can all agree on one thing. Two heads are better than one. So let's put two heads together and see if we can squeeze a few more dollars out of that income strategy.
You've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but really understanding income and lifestyle and the retirement that you're trying to create. If you're in the process of building your retirement income plan, really take some time with this segment of your plan. It's the most important part of the plan. That's why it takes up a good third of your book that you put together.
Yeah, that's for real. If you'd like a copy of my book that walks you through all the different income strategies you can do to create more certainty around your income and retirement, give us a call at 866-482-9559. We'll send you out a free copy of my book, Job Optional, 866-482-9559. Next up, risk. So we've talked about taxes. We've talked about running out of money in retirement, income, right? Then we have risk. Yeah, in this market, it's pretty much been impossible not to make money, right?
The unstoppable beast. Yeah.
Anything and everything's been making people money. But I think we all know one thing. We all know there is gravity in this situation. There's gravity in almost everything on this planet Earth. Nothing goes up forever. Everything that goes up eventually goes down. And markets are cyclical. They're going to go up. Then they're going to go back down. And what's really important when you're investing in the market, when you're taking risk, when you own a business, I mean, think about it. If you own a business and you grow that business year after year at 25% a year, but then you falter at the end, the business fails, and you get nothing out of it, who cares that you made that business grow at 25% a year? It's not important what you make in the stock market. It's ultimately how much you're able to keep.
Yeah, I love that. It goes hand in hand with the taxes. How much are you able to keep after taxes, after risk is off the table? Understanding that it's no longer about return on investment, but return on life.
Yeah, think about the last year or so. And aside from the market sell-off we had during early COVID, the market's been on an unstoppable and we all know unsustainable run. And it's propped up by what? By control spending. It's been propped up by spending that's out of control by the federal government. And this will come crashing down at some point in the near future. We want you to be prepared. You need to have a balanced approach today. And our firm's balanced approach, it keeps more of the focus on the downside risk of the market rather than this fascination of the upside and hitting home runs. You know, at this stage in your life, if you've already hit your home runs, if you already have enough, why continue to take risk with that future? Let's put together a plan that delivers you the security you need to spend with confidence in retirement and stop concerning yourself with what's next with taxes, what's next with the stock market. We want to put together a strategy for you that you can believe in, and that's why we're offering a complimentary financial review right now for the next 10 callers, where you can meet with an independent financial advisor on our team. You can do that in person. You can do that through a video meeting from the comfort of your home, and we're going to help you determine how prepared you are to handle all these risks. Maybe it's inflation, healthcare, stock market crashes, undoubtedly rising taxes. In short, we'll take the guesswork out of financial planning for you and deliver to you a personalized financial plan. It can take just 30 minutes. So for the next 10 callers that call or text the word consult to 866-482-9559, we're offering a complimentary financial plan at no obligation. That's 866-482-9559. Text consult or just give us a call at 866-482-9559. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be right back here next week with you on Retire with Purpose.
First-time callers are eligible to receive one in-stock book per request. Limit one book per week per household, up to 3 books per calendar year. See full terms at howardbailey.com/terms. You've been listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. Investment advisory services offered through Howard Bailey Securities, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Working with Howard Bailey Securities, LLC cannot guarantee investment success or that specific financial goals will be achieved. Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards, Inc. owns the certification mark CFP and Certified Financial Planner in the U.S., which it awards to individuals who successfully complete CFP Board's initial and ongoing certification requirements. Howard Bailey Financial is a registered trademark of Howard Bailey Financial. All rights reserved. Information is not intended to provide specific legal or tax advice. Howard Bailey Financial nor its advisors are qualified to give tax or legal advice. You are encouraged to consult with your tax or legal professional for guidance on your individual situation. This radio show is a paid placement.